Ghana is ongoing. The cyclists have set off already from the starting point here at TV3 and also 3FM 92.7. They are cycling all the way to Kwewu in the eastern region. And so just for the benefit of our viewers as well. Welcome back. A number of your messages coming through on TV3 Ghana on Facebook and also on X. This one here from Dr. Ishmael Norman says, good morning, Alfred and your panelists. He says that this is the kind of conversation that we need to shape the psyche and thinking of our people. We must all be concerned about where this country is and where we should and could have been. It says, kudos to your panelists, a bipartisan conversation indeed, and good morning to Andy Apiakobi. You know, Dr. Ishmael Norman says,
nice.
This is your distant relative.
He's been coming here.
Yes, indeed. So, he says he should come home. This one here from Shams is talking about we should protect Martin Pebu because he is a national asset. Not, and he says he's always been, yes. Indeed. He says that as he always has been the stock in trade of the MPP. I think you're talking about the fact that Martin Pebu says he's going to institute a case against the president when he is out of office. That's why he said we should protect him. I get that sense.
To test the constitution, to test the law.
Yeah.
Thomas says, good morning, Alfred. And all the other issues that you have mentioned today are critical, including the issue of the dialysis that we, the persons living with kidney diseases, are going through. We must also ensure that some level of justice is given to us. Thomas, thank you. This one from Prince Henry Koforidia says, good morning. I'm urging the Speaker of Parliament to make sure they don't fail this test again and at least save the sinking image of Parliament. I think this is a comment that we are making reference to what Martin Pebu said. This is that the best case must be dealt with well by Parliament for the good of the people of Ghana to regain trust in our Parliament. You say, thank you, Prince Henry from Koforidia. And then also this one from Musa Abatwa in Aswansi in the Ashanti region. Alfred, I totally agree with my boss. Sorry, you don't need a magician to tell you that everything surrounding Madam Cecilia Dape's case has been a cover-up from day one. Hence, blaming OSP is unfair because from all indication, he has tried everything possible to get to the bottom of the matter. But unseen hands are pulling him down. Inshallah, proper accountability will commence in 2025. Musa Abatwa in Sawase, thank you. This one here says that it is indeed the case. Good morning, Daniel Yao Demelovo, for this. It says this disclosure. We are all waiting for how next week will end. You say if decision is taken to have Kessie Jabeng step aside, it will not be a good signal for even government itself. You say so, will be a politically unwise one. Khalil Man from WA says, good morning. The bipartisan investigation will not yield any results. They will end up with 2 reports as usual. What happened to the IGP type investigation? Yes, they should wait for the new administration to come and investigate this because crime has no expiry date, you say. Thank you very much. And also, good morning to Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo. He has some commendation for all of you on the panel for also saying these issues in the interest of the country. Good morning to you, Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo. This one says, hello, Alfred. On a more serious note, is the Ghanaian law enforcement agents, consisting police, customs, military, IOCO, OSP, Ministry of Justice, and the Attorney General of the Judiciary, where the Chief Justice, you talk about the statements that were made, you talk about the latest new twist of the SNITS issues, as well, we must all sit up and get interested in how this nation is being run. Papa Bisiu from Accra, thank you very much, Papa Bisiu, for your message. We do acknowledge a number of them coming through. Yes, thank you so much for all the messages. 723, we thank you very much for the messages coming through. That leads us to our conversation on the cedi and the depreciation, the continuous depreciation of the cedi against the major trading currency, the dollar. In fact, there's been suggestions that we should dollarize the economy so that we can all just be saved of this situation. But others think that is not the way to go. But this is a cyclical situation, is it not? Look at what the president, then candidate Akufo-Addo, said in the run-up to the 2016 elections.
I don't see one day deep down the young faso. What was it? Because maybe Muswa, Unya faso. Because Sikano, Emunye, Nemonia Juma Kessia Babaye. The Babet sits on near the Celia, Emu, two, now one in deep down, Unya faso. What if I said no Muswa, Unya faso? Ekahubi. Kaobi tina me kofa abawumia so be kame ho ye hihye ye sikasem no eyie na sika no e munye dubio let me the adwuma ne ahoto.
So this was in 2016. So, well, if the fundamentals were weak then, that statement is actually true now. And it was on the basis of that when the statement was made that we're going to build on an economy away from the Gadgetsburg economy, which was identified as the fundamental reason for this cyclical problem that the city goes through. Because you know what, you don't even need to be an economist or, you know, Mr. Ricketts Hagan, you and I who understand some finance and economic language, to know that the city has a cyclical problem. So if the city was a big conversation in 2016 ahead of that election, and 8 years on, it is a big issue, then the fundamentals are still weak. But what was promised to be done, or what was the expectation or the promise to deal with the fundamentals? Have those promises been fulfilled? And why are we being dealt with this problem again? What should have been done? Why is it not being done? Now, we have invested the taxpayers' money into one district, one factory, and others that were supposed to address the fundamentals. But how much of an impact has that had on our industrial growth? Because I'm going to show you the trend of the industry sector's contribution to GDP. And then you would understand why, if you have economists asking the fundamental question as to why, if we have so many industries in place, as government has indicated, the industrial sector's contribution to the GDP is that minimal. Where is the disconnect? Who is telling us the untruth? Is it the Ghana Statistical Service or the presidency? Reverend John Awuni is going to be joining us in a bit. He is a executive director of the Food and Beverages Association of Ghana. Also, would have the president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA, Dr. Joseph Obeng, also joining us, because they have both issued a statement this week about how the city is impacting on us and on their businesses. So, Mr. Ricketts Hagan, you have been a deputy finance minister before. you have seen how things are played out, even in Parliament. What is happening? Because the finance minister says that we are on a path of rebound. The cedi depreciation is better than what we experienced last year. And so, really, there isn't much to be concerned about. But we woke up, in fact, we're ending this week to 15 cedis to the dollar. What is happening?
Thank you, Alfred. First of all, the clip that we just watched, the video clip we just watched, is a clear indication that the Nana Akufo-Addo, Bawumia presidency is basically failed. As far as economic management is concerned, because the things he said there, as you said, are the same things that are happening today or we're still in. So basically, it's like they moved from zero, went through something and back to zero. Now, the story of the cedi is quite a complex one, and I have come to believe, and I don't make this statement lightly, I have come to believe that the current managers of the economy actually have not fully comprehended the problems of the exchange rate, and therefore the solutions that they are prescribing is actually not working. Because if you don't understand what the problem is, it will be very difficult for you to come up with a solution, that will address the problem. Whatever little solution or misdirected solution that they even provided, it's actually not working. Now, as you rightly said, in the 2016, we were talking about under 4 cedis, being the dollar. Today, we are talking about 15 cedis to 1 USD. Again, that clearly tells you that whatever has happened in between, we've had some kind of a leadership failure as far as the managing of the economy is concerned. And this, I drive it towards the EMT, which is the Economic Management Team, which I would say was then headed by Dr. Bawumia, because I'm not quite sure whether he is still the head of the Economic Management Team.
As far as I know, he is still the head of the Economic Management Team.
Because he seems to be doing, quite recently he was doing digitalization. Now it looks like he's campaigning and obviously dancing off beats, on the field. Now, there is a historic problem, or historic challenge with the dollar, which on the cedi, basically, I should say the cedi, because dollar is not our currency. So you talk about our local currency against other major foreign currencies, but we pick the dollar because the dollar, they call it the green basket, is basically the currency that most transactions are done in or with. There is a structural weakness, and I hope some of the government people and Honorable Appiah is here watch your program, because some of these things, when you tell them in their face or you sit down to talk to them, they will not listen to you. So maybe they will listen to what I'm saying and try, because we've been talking about this many, many times over. So I want them to understand the problem, because we keep going in circles and coming to the same point. It's as if we don't know exactly what we need to do. There is a structural weakness of the cedi itself, which is historic. And that comes from the background of the structural weakness of Ghana's economy itself. So the cedi is aligned with the economy. If the economy is doing good, the cedi will do good. If the economy is doing bad, the cedi will do bad. It comes from the famous, or you can deduce from that, the famous phrase of His Excellency Dr. Baumia, that if your fundamentals are weak, your exchange rate will expose you. If the structure of your economy is weak, your currency, there is a structural weakness of your currency as well. The structural weakness, as you said, the Gudgesbeck thing you were talking about, comes from the fact that we are a country that imports too much and exports very little.
So the solution was to industrialize.
Yes.
What has become of that?
The solution was to industrialize. The form of industrialization that this government chose and did not continue what was started in the government, before this government, is part of the problem itself. Now, in addressing a currency problem, there is a short, medium, and long-term approach. The long-term approach is the industrialization that you are talking about. Because if we import too much, what we want to do is to be able to reduce our importation so that our dependence on the hard currency, the dollar, will then go down. That economists will talk about import substitution. You want to substitute, what you can actually do here, and so that you have very little to spend money on from outside. So part of the industrialization is to replace some of the things you are importing by producing them here. The second part of the industrialization is being able to produce over and beyond what you need, so you will be able to export and earn revenue. So the industrialization is supposed to reduce your expenditure of foreign exchange and increase your revenue in export, revenue. Now, the industrialization we have at the moment, which is the 1D, 1F, has basically become a playground for cronies, for friends, and for family, coming up with all sorts of cottage businesses and calling it industrialization. When you use the word industrialization, you are talking about real factories, huge factories. You are not talking about small cottage industries and all that. And then what happens? And if you're going to do cottage industry, then there should be more of them. Now, the problem here is that the industrialization itself, the methodology being used itself, is hurting industrialization, because it has become an avenue for depriving government of revenue. Because yesterday in Parliament, the tax exemptions that were brought for us to work on, which has been in the books for a while and we've been resistant, comes to around about 300 billion tax exemption.
300 billion
cedis, which is around 4 to 5 billion US dollars.
And we are the IMF seeking 3 billion.
It's gone
Absolutely.
beyond the 355 million.
Yeah, yes. So you think of it and you said, you are at the IMF, as you rightly said, seeking extended credit facility of 3 billion. But yet, you are actually losing about 4 billion US dollars.
To tax exemptions.
To tax exemption.
To who?
Well, to the cronies, I said those who are playing the 1D, 1F field. The 1D, 1F field has become an avenue to really siphon money, to create loot and share, to build money, possibly the one we are looking at, for elections. Because if somebody gets a tax exemption, obviously they're not going to go free. They will have to maybe pay some money to the party or pay some money to certain individuals to fund their political, whatever their political ambition. So this 1D, 1F is basically not working. The 1D, 1F has been going on for about 7 years now. is supposed to create jobs, but unemployment is going through the roof. It's supposed to increase production, but as you said, when you look at the graph, it's basically been flat or going down. So industrialization's contribution to growth itself has been declining when you look at the GDP curve. Now, the other thing, as I said, the revenue that you need to be able to basically solve your fundamental issues is not happening. The other problem is that, and we were lucky it didn't happen, was that the trade minister, if you quite remember, recently wanted to ban certain things.
Yes.
Okay, this is the import substitution thing we were talking about. You can only ban these things when you are actually producing them. But if you are not being able to meet what you need to be able to cut off what is coming from outside to save your currency, which is the right thing to do. Industrialization is supposed to scale up these things, and then in the process, you will then be scaling down on your importation as you scale up production in your own economy. So it's a total failure, not as a policy, but the way the policy is being implemented. So that is one. The second issue, which we have not paid attention to, which is eating the cedi away gradually, is something that happened in 2005. And I will want academics, civil society, politicians to look at this. If you remember in 2005, Ghana did some redenomination of its currency, which is basically a devaluation, where 10,000 cedis became 1 cedi, 1 million became 100 cedis by knocking zeros off the back. Now, something similar was done in Europe in a way of bringing currencies under one umbrella or create one currency, where in the early 2000s, the Spanish peseta, the Italian lira, the German Deutschmark and everything were made one currency, which is the euro. Some of the currencies were not actually up to the pegging that was created. Remember, there was some pegging, that went on that caused British government a serious problem. The Black Wednesday, where they lost so much money because the British pound was overvalued at the time. There were currencies within that exchange rate mechanism that were actually overvalued. But when they created a single currency and they had a pound, because they created a criteria for all the currencies to be aligned, they were able to stabilize the economy over time and got the currencies at par. Now, when you do a similar thing against the dollar, you don't control the dollar. You don't have any criteria between Ghana's economy and whatever happens to our inflation interest rate and whatever happens in America. So we artificially pegged the new 1 cedi against the new $1. So it was basically at par. I think even in the beginning, the cedi was slightly stronger
than the dollar.
And it became, at par. Now, over the years, this is also one of the structural issues, historic issues. Over the years, the cedi is trying to find its own level. So it looks as if the cedi was overvalued from the very beginning. So it is devaluing itself as it goes along in the last almost 20 years now, because that happened around the early 2005 or something like that. So for nearly 20 years now, that has gradually been going on. Occasionally, and as you mentioned something cyclical, occasionally, because of certain things that happen in the economy, it tends to halt that chipping away or slows it down. That is, if we're able to bring in some, if world prices of commodities, for instance, goes up, you get cocoa, now we are oil producing, all those things going up. it brings in more export revenue because these are exported items, revenue, and that helps to stabilize the cedi only for a short time. Then as we came around 2007 when we started that Eurobond business in Kufuor's time. We started getting additional revenue that comes in hard currency. When I say hard currency, I mean the dollar. That comes in to help stabilize the artificially held cedi. That happened, and then we came into office. The Eurobond continued, but they were small. Then this government came in and started the Eurobond in volumes of about 2 billion at a time.
Borrowing.
2 billion at a time.
2 billion.
3 billion at a time. And move the Eurobond debt to 13 billion US dollars as we speak. Now, the problem is that when these monies come in, and don't forget about, we had things like cocoa syndicated loans. These are all hard currencies that were coming in. So when the cocoa syndicated loan comes, Eurobond comes and ever, those things are able to cushion the cedi and give the impression as if the cedi is actually is doing well. So the moment those things disappear, and by disappear I mean, the other funny thing is that when the Eurobond and things started in these volumes and giving us those money and propping up our reserves, your reserves naturally should be your own export revenue, most of it. That comes into your, so it's your money. Our reserves are not our asset, they are our liability, because most of it is actually a borrowed money. So, yes, if it's Eurobond, IMF money that we are expecting now, the 150 that we approved yesterday, these are all borrowed money. But they will tell you that these monies are coming to help stabilize the dollar. But you are using liability to actually stabilize your dollar.
You mean the cedi?
Yeah, it's to stabilize the cedi. It's not your currency, it's not your money. So if it's cocoa money, oil money, the inflows, most of it is liability. Because don't forget, cocoa monies have reduced because you are sending less cocoa. So when these monies come in and supposed to support the currency, I mean basic economics, and this is textbook stuff, will tell you that if you take a currency world, a world of cedi and the dollar, when they say that the currency is appreciating or depreciating, it simply means that there's one currency more in the market than the other. So if the cedi is depreciating, it means you have more cedi in the economy than you have dollars, or you have less dollars in the economy than you have cedis. Therefore, one currency is chasing the other, which is scarce, and the currency that is scarce will appreciate, and the one that is not will depreciate.
But is it the case that people are actually now using the dollar as a store of value because of what is happening in the economy? A lot more people. I will quickly come to that point. So that
I need to make this. This is a very important point. This is where the picture is, and this is where this government is not seeing. Therefore, it's like they are putting water in a bucket that is leaking, thinking they are solving the problem. Because what central bank does, and you know, on the monetary policy side, is that if the cedi is depreciating, all the reserves they get, they put them in the market to buy the cedi, to reduce the cedi content in the market so that the cedi will appreciate. In buying, they use dollars. So in buying cedis out of the market, they are also putting dollars in the market. Therefore, the dollar then becomes available for people to buy. Now, when you are using borrowed money to do that, the impact is different than when you are using your own asset. Now, so you go to what you are talking about. We are a lucky country. Wow. And lucky in the sense that we don't actually operate a full speculative foreign exchange market here in Ghana. Like it happens elsewhere. Like the Black Wednesday issue, where George Soros wiped 2 billion of the British market through speculation. The speculation that happens here happens in pockets, and that is individuals believing or anticipating that the cedi is going to get weaker. Therefore, they sell their cedis to buy dollars and store. But these are done in small volumes. And look at the impact that that is having. So if we get a speculator in this market, all our reserves could be wiped out in one day. If there's any serious speculator in this market, they wipe all our reserves in one day. Now, this is the interesting bit. Up until 2019, and I choose 2019 because COVID issue comes after 20 and they are blaming things on COVID. In 2019 up to November, the Ghana cedi was the worst performing currency in the world. 2019. The cedi depreciated by 13% from January to November. Okay? And it was the worst currency. Today, 4 months into the year, the cedi has depreciated by 10%, only 4 months. So by the time we get to November, for you to compare, the depreciation of the cedi would have been almost around 20%.
In fact, the last time I checked, it was about 14.3% year to date.
Yeah, depending on how, because as it increases, as the months go, it could be reducing a bit or...
I want you to listen to the Vice President. In 2019, because you mentioned 2019, when the cedi was depreciating, this was the explanation the Vice President gave in 2019.
Right.
Take a look.
You will recall that I stated in 2014 that if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. That was true then, and it is true now. It is 100% correct. So if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. But it is warped logic to jump from that to a conclusion that if there is depreciation in your currency, then the fundamentals must be weak. Do you understand the logic? It is very warped logic. If the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. But if the exchange rate moves, you cannot jump to that conclusion that the fundamentals are weak. That defies logic.
And I
have studied this very well. This is what happened. And I said, I know this very well because I said February to you.
Indeed.
It happened in the currency depreciated.
But do you understand the logic?
Yes, I understand the logic. But, in economics, when you say things like that, you have to actually state the condition. If you don't give any condition, the reverse is also true.
I see.
Yeah, all conditions remaining. If you don't, then the reverse is also true.
Indeed.
Okay, so basically what happened here is this. As they got into the end of the year, the cedi started appreciating as a result of the year of return. When people were coming in and dropping. And that is when you chose the opportunity to make this in February. Now, 6th of March.
Same year.
Of 2020. And COVID actually kicked in around March here in Ghana. On the 6th of March, I wrote to the Vice President, Dr. Bawumia. This is where my 230 questions to Dr. Bawumia came. It was sent to him on the 6th of March, 2020.
You sent him 230
questions. Out of the 230 questions, I have 4 pages just on the exchange rate. 4 pages. All my questions, I put them in sections.
Has he answered the questions?
Well, he hasn't. So all these questions here are all on the exchange rate issue. And I pointed out to him where he's been wrong all the time. And I thought that maybe he just understands things theoretically but doesn't know how they work in practice. Okay, so what then happened was that obviously he didn't answer, and he will answer one day, just like he gave him his other questions to answer. Now, so
which you also not answered.
Yes, we'll send it back to you. We'll send him his answer questions back to him together with my 230 if he wants to be president. Now, if I can, you know.
And in fact, hold on to that thought. And
Yeah.
let me